the Saudis also need to understand the Washington Post is not going away. Right here.
No.
Hey, the guy.
I don't think they're friends.
The guy that runs the
either.
Washington Post. You know what that guy did? He took on the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, the most powerful institution, certainly the most powerful institution in Boston. He went to a Boston newspaper and he took down the Catholic Church. You are so arrogant to think that you're not going to see this for the rest of your life. You are so arrogant to think they're not going to pick your country apart every day. You will never have a day's rest. It will follow you and your country and your finances and your personal lives every second for the rest of your life. You screwed up. There's a stronger word I'd like to use, but I've already used it on this show once, so I won't use it again. They're coming after you, and they're not going to stop. And they're coming after you not with saws, not with bullets, not with bribery. They're coming after you with facts. And a team of angry journalists who aren't going to leave a scrap on your country's bones unless you do something and clean this mess up.
The Washington Post is reporting on a Capitol Hill whisper campaign to smear Jamal Khashoggi. It is reportedly led by some on the right in an effort to defend President Trump against criticism he appears to be defending Saudi Arabia's leaders over Khashoggi's disappearance. 4 GOP officials tell the Post that in recent days, some conservative House Republicans, who are these people, allied with Trump, have been privately exchanging articles from right-wing outlets that fuel suspicion of Khashoggi, highlighting his association with the Muslim Brotherhood in his youth and raising conspiratorial questions about his work decades ago as an embedded reporter covering Osama bin Laden. Yesterday, the rumors surfaced during a panel on Fox News.
Now some things have come out, and we're just reporting the facts. You know, Lisa, we don't have to fall down one way or the other on this, but Khashoggi was tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. And
That's
exactly
iffy, Harris, to say that he was tied to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, what was it then?
So throughout his career, he was a government spokesperson for the royal family who worked for Prince Turki when he was in Washington, D.C., and at times had written and worked with some Muslim Brother members in Saudi Arabia. But he was always
Muslim Brotherhood
spokesman or a journalist. And so, I mean, he's been tied up with a lot of people.
I just put it out there because it is in the constellation of things that are being
Some people are using that, though, to discredit him. And I'm not saying you are. Some are, and I don't like that.
I think some of his tweets showed sympathy to the Muslim Brotherhood as well.
I'm putting it in the mix. I'm just putting it out there. That's very Trump-like. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. A complete lie.
By the way,
I'm just going to put it out there because that's my responsibility, to lie.
Jonathan Lemire, a complete
incredibly
lie,
irresponsible.
A complete lie. And if you look at what
a disservice.
What the sleaze merchants on Capitol Hill are doing, what the sleaze merchants on talk radio are doing, we're not going to even mention their names because they're so sleazy. They actually give sleazy a bad name. They're actually saying that he's affiliated with Al Qaeda because he was a reporter, like a lot of reporters who reported on Osama bin Laden in the 80s and the 90s and the Mujahideen. That's like when your father was working to try to overthrow the Soviet government in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Worked with the Mujahideen. Guess what? That's what we were doing. We were trying to win the Cold War. And
you
now
have to understand history to be able to decipher.
But it's incredible. This is. I guess if people want to ask how low the far right sleaze merchants can go, this is a pretty good place to start. This is a pretty good case study.
I mean, and time and again, we've seen this. Some of the president's allies on the Hill, and certainly in the conservative media, who have carried his water, whether it was when he accused President Obama of wiretapping Trump Tower. There are people out there who are willing to give him cover on no matter what issue it is. And this is a case, I know we're talking about this, maybe it seems like Trump is starting to distance himself from the royal family in Riyadh, but the Trump administration has bet big on MBS. They've made Saudi Arabia the linchpin of their Middle East strategy and trying to come up peace in the region as a bulwark against the threats, terror threats and extremism there, and certainly Iran. And it is going to be difficult for them to untangle themselves. So right now, in this sort of precarious moment, the president's allies are out there doing his work to try to give him some cover.
And by the way, you know what does not work in Middle America, Willie and Donnie? Smearing a guy who's preaching reform against Saudi sheiks who carved his body up while he was still alive. That doesn't play well in Peoria or in Tuscaloosa.
Well, forget politics. On a purely human level, if you're a part of this smear campaign, think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. You're saying a man who went into a consulate to get a marriage license and left in pieces in a bag after he was tortured and murdered, he's the bad guy?
Wow.
That's what you're saying.
Just
you're saying
putting
he's
it
the
out
bad
there.
guy. Think about what you're doing this morning. Look in the mirror and think about what you're doing.
By the way,
it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And what are they going to do now, Donnie? That Donald Trump, the president of the United States, the guy whose bidding they're doing, seems to be moving in the other direction, saying, well, I think he was killed, and it does look like MBS, and I didn't really know MBS. Now, what are they going to say today?
Like everything else, Trump will leave toxicity in his path, and all those who stood by him will be standing there. I made a little joke before we were going to break, and Alex yelled at me because I'm not supposed to talk as we're going to break, but little Jared Kushner is going to be very upset because his Crown Prince buddy, they're not going to be able to do their future dealings together, and Jared's going to be very upset because he worked so hard to have such a nice relationship with this other Crown Prince. That's Jared Kushner. He's very upset because his little Crown Prince buddy, who he's worked so hard, and what people forget.
What voice is that? I don't know that.
It's Jared Kushner.
No, that's not Jared.
He's Jared Kushner.
I get it.
It could be you.
No, it's not Donnie.
It's approaching
the
Bugs
little
Bunny.
Crown Prince is upset.
Okay,
These little Crown
thank you.
Princes.
Stop it.
I can't stop. I just can't stop.
Doesn't stop. Well, no. Listen, Jared was hanging out all weekend with MBS all weekend, right before he did what he did with the other Saudi princes. He was there all weekend, and then he leaves, and boom, suddenly everybody goes under house arrest and gets tortured in the Ritz, and you just wonder whether Jared gave him the go-ahead. Hey, listen, you do what you want to do. We're not going to bother you.
By the way, the woman pushing back was Marie Harf, a former Obama State Department spokesperson, pushed back on that Fox host's suggestions that Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist who was murdered at the hands of the Saudis, that he wasn't clean. I don't know how gossip and rumors and smear campaigns end up being parroted by the press. That is as disgraceful as it
really is. And by the way, I got to say, Fox
really
News
sad moment.
has done a good job at times over the past month or so calling people out. Yeah. And boy, they should really be saluted for that because that is so important. They need to call that out.
I hope management does something.
They need to call that out.
Coming up, back in August, President
And
Trump.
by the way, we'll call Donnie out.
Yeah, that's a bad voice.
I can't help it.
No.
This is a deeply personal story. It hurts when a member of the press is treated this way, and you have a president who calls the press the enemy of the people, and you have a press under siege when most of us are trying to do our jobs and stick to the facts. Anyhow, coming up.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.